Predator hunting is an increasingly popular genre of content online, featuring individuals who decide to bait, entice, and confront alleged predators in the real world. However, the act of predator hunting is actually quite controversial, since often evidence found during their pseudo-investigations cannot be used to make an arrest. But unfortunately for an Australian man named Bradley Lyons, he would be targeted not by YouTubers looking to expose him for views, but by a dangerous gang fueled by a hatred for predators. A gang that would decide to be his judge, jury, and executioner, all based on a single claim, which would end up being a lie. A lie that would come from the most unexpected source, his own wife. Lyons would marry a woman named Jana Hooper and have 3 of his 8 children with her. However, despite this, Hooper would still tell Nick Stefani, a self-proclaimed predator hunter who lived in a guest house on the property, that Lyons had abused her daughters. She would also claim that he was the father of her 16-year-old daughter's child and that he had gotten her 14-year-old daughter pregnant. Allegations that would end up being completely untrue. It is unknown if Hooper was simply lying and betraying her husband, as many articles and publications suggest, or if she genuinely believed it. But Lyons would have more to lose than just his reputation when Stefani would tell gang leader Albert Thorne the allegations against him. On December 2nd, 2018, after being driven home from the supermarket where he worked by Hooper, a white car would approach the residence. Stefani would exit the home, approach the vehicle, and eventually lead Thorne inside with the intention to attack and kidnap Lyons. Reportedly, Hooper, who was in the kitchen at the time, would nod to the 2 men, making her not just a catalyst for the lie, but a contributor to his eventual execution as well. There was no footage of what occurred inside the home, but eventually 2 men, later identified as Alec Harvey and Ricky Smith, would be seen running from the home and getting into a newly arrived vehicle. They would attempt to drive off so fast, one person would fall out. The vehicle would allegedly be driven by fellow gang member Jaden Ball. Then, Thorne's car would be backed up to the home, and although it is hard to make out, this security footage is believed to be depicting Lyons being placed in the trunk of the car after he was assaulted inside the home. It too would drive off as the camera calmly captures Jana Hooper closing the gate to the driveway before casually walking back into the home. Lyons would never be seen alive again. It is believed that the 4 men, Thorne, Stefani, Smith, and Harvey, would take turns beating Lyons with a metal pole and intimidating him with a sawed-off shotgun, at times even placing the barrel of the weapon in Lyons' mouth, all in an attempt to get him to confess to the allegations against him. One report would also suggest a lit cigarette was placed into one of Lyons' eyes. Thorne would then take Lyons to a secluded property in East Gippsland, allegedly owned by his mother, and leave him in the trunk for as long as 21 hours. One of the girlfriends of the men who was at Thorne's property would allegedly hear Lyons say, "Get me out of here, or kill me now." What happened next is anyone's guess, but I've seen several claims from several articles about the brutal torture Lyons was subjected to by Thorne and his goons. The men, now including Jordan Bottom, who was asleep at Thorne's property when they arrived with Lyons, would beat the man, pour boiling water on him, and cover his body in deep heat, an Australian icy hot like pain cream that gets very hot when applied. But most famously, they would torture Lyons with a chainsaw. Stefani would allegedly tell one of Hooper's own daughters that they had held the chainsaw over Lyons' head and made him urinate on himself, likely either through fear or by lack of access to a bathroom. He would also make a comment suggesting they had used the chainsaw to remove one of Lyons' hands, and that he intended to cut a tattoo of the names of Lyons' children, including the ones he was accused of assaulting, off of him. It is unknown just how long he was held and tortured, but eventually he would be removed from the shed of the property he was held in and taken back to the trunk of Thorne's car, labeled as his mother's car by one publication, and driven to an even more secluded location on a dirt track near double bridges. Once there, the men would dig a shallow grave as Lyons was forced to watch, and then he would be shot in the knee by a shotgun. Then once kneeling, again in the back of the head. Bottom would initially tell police that he took the shots, but would later deny that he was the one to actually do it. The men would then bury Lyons and place a large tree over top in hopes of hiding the burial site. The girlfriend of Bottom would later testify that the men held a party at Thorne's property, one that Hooper and her own daughters would attend, where they would be seen cheering and drinking. I am unsure of exactly how or why the police were tipped off to the involvement of these men in the, what at the time would have been considered, disappearance of Bradley Lyons, but about 3 months later, Bottom would actually lead police to the burial site, one that still had a dispensed cartridge at it. The jury would later hear that 93% of Lyons' bones were recovered, with the missing percentage consisting of his hands, his feet, and one bone from his neck. Further amplifying the claims, the men had used a chainsaw to remove appendages from Lyons, although this has never been completely confirmed. For their involvement in these crimes, Jana Hooper, Lyons' wife, would be sentenced to 7.5 years for intentionally causing injury, kidnapping, and false imprisonment. Stefani would plead guilty to the same and be sentenced to 10 years. Ricky Smith would also be sentenced to 10 years. Alec Harvey would be sentenced to 8.5 years and would admit to being the one to dispose of the murder weapon. Jaden Ball would be sentenced to 2 years for driving the attackers to and from Lyons' home, and Jordan Bottom, who assisted police in their investigation, would be sentenced to 9 years. He'll be eligible for parole in February of next year. All would be found not guilty of the actual murder of Bradley Lyons. Albert Thorne, leader of the gang, and the only one in danger of actually being sentenced for the murder of Lyons, would express concern to the court that he would likely die in jail if he were to be given the minimum sentence for the murder. The court would ultimately declare that that was their full intention when they handed the, at the time, 58-year-old a life sentence. He will be eligible for parole in 32 years by the time he is 90 years old. As I mentioned before, from the articles and information I reviewed for this case, I could not immediately find a motive for Hooper to lie about the actions of her husband, although some articles go as far as to suggest it could be the result of the fact Hooper, along with Thorne and other members of the gang, allegedly partook and had a dependency on illegal substances. If you happen to know the real reason behind her claims, or just want to offer a theory, let me know down in the comments below. Well, that's about it. If you made it this far, I think you'd like this video about Izai Sagawa, the Japanese cannibal who never got punished for his crimes. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time.